Kamala Harris and Tim Walz recently did a video where they casually discussed mundane topics like their favorite music and their favorite food. The purpose of the video was to get the audience to be like, wow, look at how normal these two candidates are. And it was likely to contrast with that awful interview Trump did with Elon last week that Elon branded as just a normal conversation. But it was just Trump cycling through his usual talking points when it comes to demonizing immigrants. He also talked about his assassination attempt, like people actually still fucking care about that. Oh, and he was also praising Elon for firing Tesla workers who went on strike. Truly an everyday man standing up for fellow everyday people, am I right? Anyway, I didn't really have much interest in this Kamala Harris and Tim Walz video until I heard Republicans have been melting down over it a few days ago. Here's the specific clip that a lot of them have been getting mad over.
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that?
black,
like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota, you know?
If you're a normal person, you might be like, what the fuck was so egregious about that clip? Well, the supposed problem is his white guy tacos remark and him not being able to handle spicy foods very well. And the age-old white stereotype is we don't like exotic foods, we can't handle spicy foods, and we only like plain shit, like what Kamala said, tuna and mayonnaise. And this is evidence that Kamala is running a racist campaign against white people. I mean, Republicans really have nothing, do they? What sane person who is not in your right-wing echo chamber, or really a political person at all, is going to see that clip and be like, oh my god, what a horribly racist remark. The only reason Harris's campaign would publish such a vile clip is to showcase her hatred for white people. We are truly being persecuted, and therefore I am hopping on the Trump train. No normal person is going to think that. I'd imagine most people would be like, who gives a shit, because I'd imagine most people by this point have heard other people make similarly harmless jokes. I'm white, well, half white. My mother's background is Ecuadorian and my father's background is mostly European, but when it comes to my taste buds, I definitely inherited mine from my father's side of the family. I can't handle spicy food for shit, and I've made similar jokes with friends of mine that come from different cultural backgrounds. I usually say something like, I'm white so I can't handle a lot of the food that you like to eat. It is a simple, self-deprecating joke that has no roots in systemic oppression whatsoever, because there is no systemic oppression on the basis of being white at all. And Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire wrote this asinine tweet. Crazy that a presidential candidate can just casually let out some blatant anti-racism and nobody cares. Imagine if Donald Trump said that a black guy taco, quote-unquote, was made with fried chicken and watermelon. Nuclear meltdown. He's trying to point out a supposed double standard because for centuries by this point, the classic stereotype against black people is that they all like fried chicken and watermelon. That stereotype is made popular by minstrel shows and vintage cartoons that made black people look like these ugly, inhumane creatures. And the point of garbage like that was to dehumanize black people in this country. This was back when they couldn't go to the same stores as white people, or use the same fountains, or go to the same schools, or work the same jobs, etc. And this is also back when this country wasn't so far removed from having black people be enslaved. So how does saying, oh, I'm a white guy so I can't handle spicy foods all that well, even compare to a joke and a stereotype that has ties to when a racial minority in this country was even more systemically oppressed than it is today? The persecution complex with a lot of these Republicans who are mad about this right now is off the fucking charts. And I've seen people like Jack Posobiec, who by the way is also supposedly that end wokeness asshat on Twitter, dig up a tweet from Tim Walz where he shares that he won Best Hot Dish in Minnesota or some shit a few years ago. And they're like, see, he can actually handle spicy foods. He's just feeding into a harmful stereotype, and this is anti-white propaganda, and this is akin to a reverse minstrel show. And I'm like, okay, even if he is not being entirely truthful when it comes to not liking spicy foods, which by the way, you can make foods that you personally don't enjoy, that's not a foreign concept at all, who the fuck cares? What what does this have anything to do with his potential vice presidency? This is possibly the dumbest shit you could hyper-focus on. But they have no choice but to hyper-focus on the most innocuous shit because they have nothing on Kamala and Tim Walz. Trump is flailing in the polls in swing states, his base is in panic mode, and they're just throwing whatever shit at the wall, hoping and praying that something, anything sticks. And this is certainly not going to be something that sticks. If your average person hears about this controversy, quote-unquote, they'll probably be like, okay, who the fuck cares? What a weird thing for you to fixate on. And by the way, thanks for the great ammo when it comes to calling you weird. You're definitely beating those allegations. And doesn't this ring a bell when it comes to what conservatives were claiming the left was back in 2016? Having a massive persecution complex, finding racism in the most minuscule, inconsequential shit. How does conservatives melting down over something as silly as this not constitute as any of that? We have truly come full circle. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.